I was just like, yeah. It was bad. It was bad. It was me talking by myself on screen for a minute. And let's see, make sure. All right, we're both on there. All right, cool. So, wow. I mean, from Malta by way of Luxembourg with love. It's such a great. It's great to see you.
Same here. Lots of love.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So for the audience here who is mostly living in the U.S., can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in Luxembourg and specifically, I mean, in Central Europe in general and Luxembourg specifically, in terms of response to this?
So I'm stuck in the micro country of Luxembourg because this is where I work. My partner is in London, and it's too risky to drive there because of roadblocks in France and so on. You need all sorts of permissions, apart from the danger of the journey itself. Yeah, and I could be a carrier. And my family in Malta, another micro country in the middle of the Mediterranean. I didn't go there because I have vulnerable people in the family. So I stayed here, and now I've accepted it after over a month, right? And so the situation here in Luxembourg, because like 40% of the population here is foreign, right? And there's a lot of cross-border workers. In terms of deaths per million, Luxembourg is in the COVID-19 Olympics, you know, this country by country fucking steeplechase, like it's some kind of competition. Luxembourg is 11th. And in terms of testing per 1,000 or per million, Luxembourg is 3rd in the world, right? So there are a lot of cases, but also because there's lots of testing, yeah. And where I live, it's like a kind of multicultural working class suburb of Luxembourg City. It's called Bonnevoie, yeah. And a lot of the people who live here are from Portugal. Like 1/6 of the population of this country is 1st, 2nd, 3rd generation Portuguese, and a lot of Italians, people from Cape Verde. So it's very. This is the most buzzing area of the city. And one thing I've noticed walking in the streets here is that you see a lot more Luxembourg flags than usual. I mean, you tend to see these flags on the 22nd of June, which is the national day, like the birthday of the Grand Duke. And you see them during like football World Cups, because the law here is if you put out like a flag of Italy or Portugal or Brazil or whatever, it must be accompanied by the Luxembourgish flag.
Okay.
Normally. Now there's lots of Luxembourgish flags in the windows and on balconies. And I can kind of understand the expression of like the collective national effort in the war against the fucking virus, right?
Right.
It makes me feel uncomfortable to see all these Luxembourgish flags in an area which is very international, you know? It's almost an accusation. Like all you people who are traveling, and I travel a lot because I'm a translator and because my partner's in London, family in Malta and so on. It's like an accusation. Like anyone who is not like a real Luxembourger is suspicious because they could be carriers of the virus, you know? So what some friends and I have been discussing is to declare. Now, so Luxembourg is a monarchy. It's a grand duchy, yeah? So we are going to declare the Republic of Bonnevoie, this area.
I love it.
Yeah. And we already have
Republic.
Yeah, exactly. The people's it won't be communist. It'll be anarchist.
Okay.
Or using like the first half of the word Bonnevoie, it will be the Bonarchie. Yeah. It's a semi-political and semi-artistic project. We will offer services like a friend of mine already is doing serenades with his guitar every evening at 8 p.m. Always under a different window. Whoever asks for that service. He does a lot of Neil Young and his own stuff. I might do a poetry at the window thing where people send me an email and their preferred kind of poetry, whether it's Whitman or Yeats or whoever, and then I recite under their window or balcony. So this is all part of the République de Bonnevoie. And it's also a response to all those Luxembourg flags that, like I said, they're understandable because people are going into a kind of tortoise shell. And for some people, that means the national space, right? But you're also excluding people, So
yeah, so it's kind of the you're talking about like the mutual aid and affinity republic of
yeah. We still have to work on we don't need a constitution. We need a kind of, not a statute. We need some kind of declaration, basically. We might do that. Yeah.
Well, okay, so I really originally met at the San Francisco National Poetry Festival, and at the time you were reading a poem called "The Passport," which had kind of taken you all over the place, got you a lot of notoriety around that time. It was a kind of an international splash success with that. So can you tell our audience a little bit about that poem, "The Passport," and then share with us some poetry?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's difficult for me to look back at anything I wrote before the lockdown, before the quarantine. I had this childish illusion for the first 2 or 3 days of self-isolation. I thought, yes, now I'm going to be able to catch up on all the things that I've been waiting for months or for years, right? But that illusion was popped on the 3rd day. And I realized, hey, I can't deal with all these fucking emails. Sorry for swearing. I can't deal with all these emails about projects and travels and book ideas and stuff. I can't handle it. No. So I put an out of office, friendly one, and I'm focusing only on writing about walking, especially at night, around this area. My experience of the virus and its consequences. But I mean, the passport, just to answer your question, let me grab one. So you know what I'm talking about. Well, this is the German version, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, can you see? Yeah, it's a poem in the form of a passport or an anti-passport. With this, you can go anywhere you want. No visa, no interrogation, no humiliation, right? No body search. I wrote it in Maltese in 2009, and since then it's been translated and adapted for the theater in different places. Most recently by a Mexican theater group in Canada, incidentally. Right?
That's very appropriate.
I'll send you the link later. It's like an adaptation of lots of different works put together about migration. Mex Canada. Right. So it's very difficult for me to focus on anything that I've written before or anything that I was planning to write just over a month ago. I write a lot about maps. I've always been a map freak. But it's very difficult for me to look at maps now because the maps in the news, it's just bad news. It's all bad news. And I can't stand seeing, I was talking about the COVID-19 Olympics, I can't stand seeing, these political maps, one country redder than the other, like it's some kind of competition. I mean, the only statistics I really want to see are comparisons between regions and metropolises like New York, London, right? Luxembourg and Malta could be plotted on the same graph because it doesn't make sense to go country by country. This is local transmission, yeah?
Right.
And you know what? The only website I found that does this kind of region by region comparison of all websites is the Financial Times. I never thought that I would consult Financial Times once a day. But it's the only website doing it, man.
Yeah.
So you can see the New York curve and the London curve and Lombardy, Wuhan. Yeah, it's much more useful than the country by country classification. Like it's some kind of FIFA ranking,
Well, they got to track their money, so they keep a close eye on these things. So the information is good. The information is strong anyway, so it's useful.
Yeah. What's the situation in California?
So in California, we have so the United States of America in many ways is it really the states are very different from one another, and that's a real thing. It's not just in our minds or cultural. So the governors have a lot of power. So in California, Gavin Newsom has taken a very, very aggressive stance around the coronavirus response, the COVID response, and the results are showing. I mean, it's he's doing a better job. He's doing a much better job than Andrew Cuomo, who's always constantly on the news. He's the not just him, but the whole state it's in a much better position than the New York, and that's because of the aggressive stance and the early aggressive stance that Newsom and other mayors like Garcetti took. So, I mean, there's a lot to criticize these people for many reasons, but in terms of the response to this, California has been comparatively very good to the rest of the country. Really, I mean, better than Washington, better than Washington State and other places. It's been they stopped it pretty early. I think it was something like when it hit like something like 12 or 13 deaths. Just looking at things that happened around the world, that's when we went to lockdown. When it was like when the numbers were barely in the double digits. It wasn't even like 2 dozen yet. And so we went in lockdown at that point in time. And as a result, there's people died, and it's tragic, but it's nothing like New York, and nothing even like Seattle. I mean, even the city of Seattle, I think has more. Yeah. So.
Oh my goodness. My cousin, a very dear cousin, is in Manhattan. She lives there. She works for the Maltese embassy, and she was helping Maltese people in the US to be repatriated, and she stayed there. She's quite happy there. Obviously, there are dangers in Manhattan, but she chose not to go home, so she wouldn't be a risk to her own elderly parents and other vulnerable people in the family. So, but she's doing okay so far. I was in New York in February, in fact, to visit her, and also in the north of Canada for a panel event. And it was like the first or second weekend of February, and I passed through Toronto Pearson Airport, and that's when I had my first kind of experience of the fear and the paranoia. Like all the workers are wearing masks. I hadn't seen that yet. And one very sad thing, anybody remotely Asian looking, people would, flee them. When I was at the gate to take the plane back to New York, so you had like probably a Chinese family sitting at the gate, and then you have like 4 or 5 seats completely free, and everyone is standing around and trying to keep away from anyone who looks remotely Chinese. That was really sad. Yeah. And then the next bogeyman was the Italians and the Spanish, and now who's the bogeyman now? Who's the bogeyman now? Anyone who travels?
Yeah. Apparently in Luxembourg. No. Of course, in the United States, we've had a number of people getting attacked in the streets, and it's been we've had our share. Definitely, it's not been good.
Racial attacks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's happened in London as well. Yeah. Crazy.
On that note, care to share some new poetry?
Yeah, sure. So I'm still writing a series of poems, the working title is Walking in the Days of the Virus. I might change it to the days and nights, because most of the walks I do at night anyway. And I chose not to use Corona in the time of Corona because it's a bit cliche, and we need to leave Garcia Marquez in peace. All these articles in the time of Corona, links back to El amor en los tiempos de cólera, love in the time of cholera. It's really cliche now. And also, I don't like to speak of Corona because sometimes it feels like product placement, There were all these stupid jokes of people sharing like bottles of Corona beer. I mean, come on. Why are you giving a free advert to a global conglomerate? Why are you doing that? You don't need to do free advertising.
Because people like to say cliche things. I mean.
So I chose in the days of the virus instead of Corona. Yeah? Well, like I said, it's a working title. So these are all walks, and I'm writing them in English, which is like, I have two first languages, Maltese and English,
Yeah.
Because I'm born in London. And I'm writing them in English, but other languages are present because I'm living in a multicultural area. So there's some Maltese, there's some Luxembourgish, French. And so...
Before we get started, how many languages can you functionally speak?
5. 5, which in Luxembourg is nothing because there are so many languages here. There are people who are not linguists, like an ex-girlfriend of mine, she's not a linguist, but she spoke 7 languages because her family's from Argentina, but she was brought up here, so she learned Luxembourgish and German in school, but her main language is French, but she also speaks Italian because her father is Italo-Argentinian, and then there's English, and I can't remember the other language. So it's normal here to speak more than 5 languages. So I'm going to read number 4. This is a short walk. It's called Pharmacie du Cimetière. So I live next to a cemetery, a very nice place, full of plum cherry trees, and the blossom finished a few days ago. And on the other side of this cemetery is a pharmacy, which is not called Pharmacie du Cimetière, but I'm referring to it like that because I don't want to do product placement, and because it's bang in front of the main entrance of the cemetery. Not sure if this is fever or a late afternoon hangover. The mind sprints with 1,000 limbs in all directions. As I step out of bed, the smooth wood underfoot becalms my breath. Crossing the cemetery toward the pharmacy. Cherry trees in bloom. I guess this year there'll be no Hanami parties in Japan. As I cross Rue du Cimetière, a gentleman, probably homeless, walks softly towards me. Monsieur, auriez-vous? His age, beard, courteous demeanor remind me of an acquaintance, an anarchist publisher of poetry. But this is totally irrelevant. I shift a little to the right, point to my nose, throat, nose, best not to open my mouth, suggest I'll be back through my eyes, and keep walking. Great. Now the people scattered along both pavements hurl sidelong glances. Great indeed. They'll be keeping their distance. May bonne voix not morph into malvoix anytime soon. Maximum 2 personnes à la fois dans la pharmacie, merci. Not even a cher client at the start. They've had it up to here. Antoine, don't touch your face. They must be sick of us by now, though not literally, I hope. Waiting a few meters outside the door, a fellow Mediterranean comes, reads the sign, stands next to me, a little too close. I shift a little to the right. He follows, maybe to be closer to the door. I take a step back. He takes another step right. I go diagonal left. He goes diagonal right. We're circling now, like repelling magnets. Almost a dance. La danse macabre à la pharmacie du cimetière. Finally in. Your moyenne, bonjour. The pharmacist greets me with a hand pushing out. Nothing new, come to think of it. They're never friendly to me in here, but this time it's not my accent. Oui, moyenne. Des comprimés pour la grippe. Fort ou normal? Les forts, on peut les couper en 2? Oui. Très bien. Auriez-vous un thermomètre? He shakes his head with disapproval at my stupid question. I grab a bag of vitamin bears. I'll burn them off somehow with walk or worry. Decision time. Cash or card? Don't want to lean over. I throw a banknote instead. He throws one back and a couple of coins. I shuffle out slowly with an instinctive merci de coeur. Jesus, I've never said that before in this store. A quick zip into the supermarket, almost empty now. Need bleach for keys. Desk, mind's eye. On the curb outside the supermarket, the shabby gentleman emanates more peace than anyone else. I hand him the €5 note from the pharmacy. Just hope it's not infected. Hope he has a place to sleep. How apocalyptically shit that at the worst of times, kindness could be fatal. Cemetery closed now. Walking around it, I wonder, what are they doing with the bodies if there are no funerals? Are they being incinerated without witness? Can relatives keep the ashes? What will happen to these cherry trees when they replace the cemetery with another block of flats or shopping center? No sign of last night's cat. Perhaps they let him in again. His 2-second rub against my leg is still fresh. In the letterbox, a large envelope with the slender red lion of Le Gouvernement du Grand-Duché de Luxembourg. Lockdown instructions, no doubt. If they impose a curfew, like in Paris, with forms for permission to go out, the only walking will be desk to bed and back. Back inside. Open all windows before taking the knife to the envelope. Ah, no, look, a map. A map of this shoe-shaped country with place names in Letzeburgish. I ordered this 2 months ago. Well, very good timing. Okay, Letzeburg. Sorry for what I said yesterday. I feel better now. Hot shower, swigs of water. The shivers have gone. Outside the bedroom window, the sunset colors temper the pink blossom lining the edge of the cemetery. It's so breathtaking, I could weep for the 3rd time this week.
Wow. It always comes through when you're writing. In my limited experience with you, but I mean, we did the festival and I've seen you over the years, but it's always comes through as a real love of language and an interest in people, and a deep, abiding interest in people. Whether you like them or not, like a deep interest in people, a love of language.
Wow. One major risk of spending a long time alone, I'm finding recently, especially because I'm writing and spending a lot of time writing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not completely alone. I have a pet octopus. Octu. Yeah. It's hard to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
What is the octopus's name?
Ottu.
Octu.
OTTU. It's like it's number 8 in Italian stroke Maltese, but with a U instead of an O. Ottu. And he has a daffodil next to him that I brought him yesterday from the cemetery. I didn't steal it from a grave, it's from a walkway, and there are hundreds of them. So I brought him a daffodil. I had already brought him the cherry blossom, but that only lasted a few days. And then I brought him some peonies from the US cemetery. Well, it's like the war cemetery here in Luxembourg, close to the runway. And now I brought him a daffodil. And the daffodil is there to remind us not to become narcissistic, because that's the major danger of spending so long alone, a connection like this series that you're doing of interviews, that's why it's so important as well to remember that we are not alone. And we have so much in common. Our solitude connects us.
That's another cliche. A potential cliche there. Another Marquez.
Solitude connects us. But there's truth in it.
No, absolutely. So speaking of being connected, we have a question in our comment section here.
Ah,
Hi Antoine, are most of your poems in English or French? Or what is your preferred language you use for your poems? Since you are fluent in 5 language, which language do you, in quotes, think
okay.
in?
I didn't realize there was a chat going on. Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People are
Thank you for
questions.
the question. Okay. So, Karena. Well, it's a long story, and I'll try to keep it short. So, yeah, I was born in London to Maltese parents, and my first language was English because I was living in London, and because our mother, I'm the eldest of uh, three plus two. Um, so my parents fled to London because their families didn't want them to be together and they wanted to get married. So at the age of, like, my father was only 18, my mother was 20, they went to London to get married. My father was studying to become a priest under orders from my nana, my grandmother. And when he met not my mother, some other woman, he stopped his religious studies, and that's another reason why he fled to London. But and our mother was also fleeing from her own father. And she wanted to cut off with Malta completely, so she spoke to me and my brothers only in English, right, to sever her ties with Malta. I understand. Our father would use Maltese, but he almost never came home. And when I did hear Maltese, it would be in the middle of the night. And until the age of 8, for me, Maltese, it was the language of violence in the house, right? It used to scare me. But then at the age of 8, when my parents began to split, I went to live with my grandparents in a small village in Malta, on my father's side, and I started to use Maltese with my grandparents and started to appreciate it in a much different way. At the age of 13, I went back to England to a boarding school and lost contact with Maltese until I was like 26. In the process, I had already learned Italian in Malta because I'm from the penultimate generation that grew up with Italian television, radio, music, football, calcio, soccer. And I had started to learn Spanish because my father's second wife is Spanish, and also French at school. So that's where the 5 languages come from. Now, about which language I write in. So now, I mean, at the moment, I'm writing mostly in English, but with other languages in dialogue. But I don't consider them multilingual poems. For me, they're poems in English with some ingredients in other languages. I used to write multilingual poems in the form of a sonnet where you'd have 4 or 5 languages rhyming with each other. I used to call them mosaiki or mosaics. That was an experiment that became expression and experience. But then after like 4 years, the Maltese language was there knocking on the door until it very softly slammed the door down. And I began to write in monolingual Maltese, including the passport, even though it's an international kind of, it hasn't, not international because it contains the word nation. It's a planetary poem, yeah, but written in Maltese. And I write mostly in Maltese, but a lot in English if it's about travel and if I'm doing. The good thing about writing in English is that you can be telegraphic. You don't have to worry about grammar so much. You don't have to be so lyrical, you know? If I was writing these virus walking in the days of the virus poems in Maltese, I would have to pay a lot more attention to rhythm and music because of the tradition of Maltese poetry. And I would have to worry about verbs and conjugations and stuff. In English, it can be telegraphic, and English is more, because of colonialism and all that shit, right? English is more welcoming of other languages, if you know what I mean, inside it, right? Whereas Maltese, if you're writing in Maltese, it's considered bad taste to mix with other languages, you know? So, yeah, hope that answers your question.
So for again, this audience is largely a audience living in the United States. So many of them are unfamiliar with the Maltese language. I mean, I know I was when we first met, and it was
Yeah.
a really it was such an interesting. It was so interesting to hear you speaking it because there were elements of what I understand to be Italian, and there were elements of what I
Right?
understand to be Arabic. Right, and I understand it's its own language, but the to my ear, to my unaccustomed ear, that's what it kind of sounded like. And can you tell?
Yeah,
Can you answer a little bit about the
about the
multi?
Maltese language. Sure. So it comes from Arabic. I mean, one theory says that Maltese and Arabic stemmed out of Phoenician more or less at the same time, but that's just anti-Arab bullshit, right? Maltese comes from Arabic, and it's something to be proud of, right? But it has a lot of Italian in it, yes, and Sicilian, and also English today. Um, yeah, I mean, if you'd like to hear a bit of Maltese, let me think. Maybe I can do a short poem or something.
Yeah,
In Maltese. Let me find one. Sorry, I'm about to roll here. Natural medicine to keep me calm, which is
yeah.
legal, by the way. Uh,
I mean,
Let me see. Okay, short poem in Maltese. Like I said, it's hard for me to look back at what I was writing before, but these are also poems about walking as a form of self-therapy.
mhm.
It's from a book called Airby New 40 Days. So just a short one, the one that's here on the back. المشي الصلمورة القلب ما يمشي يك تبكي بخر لح سقيك فيخ يك يحرق عينيك عالدسم في الريخ خليك من مين تشكنك بيش يتكبر خليك من مين كشكشك بيش يستبر خليك من دلك جايب المنجل الأحمر يك شي ضان له جيخ امشيك في طريقتك ما لبكي كون قطوس تياك نفسك امشي كون الطريقة اللي تلقى سيئك اكتب كون الكلمة اللي تفسر سكيتك وتلقى فم الريخ ضان وضميرك. I'm realizing that there's hardly any words from Italian in this short poem because probably because I was going to say that the Arabic element of Maltese is more musical, but that's not true. Because these poems talk a lot about parts of the body and very elemental kind of nouns, they tend to be older words, right? And so they would come from Arabic. Italian came in the 14th, 15th century, yeah? So probably the only Italian word there is salmura, which is salt water or brine. The rest are all from Arabic, I think.
Yeah.
So that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I mean, it's funny. I often think back. Well, it's it's one of the early memories I have from doing poetry, at like a kind of at a notable level. This was the festival we did together. So the memory that always sticks with me was stealing the bottle when I stole the bottle of wine from the bourgeoisie of San Francisco. The bourgeoisie from San Francisco, and how we went down with Yaha, and we were just drinking in the streets and
Yeah, I remember.
poets in the streets of San Francisco.
By the way, I saw Jack Hirschman recently in the summer because I was driving back from Malta to Luxembourg. Took me 6 days because I hurt my neck. I didn't have a crash. It was just tense during a rainstorm in the mountains. But so I stayed with him for 1 day in Florence. He happened to be doing a tour of Italy, as he does once or twice a year. Mm-hmm. So I stayed with him in Florence and went to his reading that he had there with Sergio Iagulli, of the Casa della Poesia. And we were planning to bring, because Jack was coming to Italy again now, April, May, yeah, and we were planning to bring him to Malta to do a reading. Oh, wow. Just before the lockdown began, and then of course everything just fell, right? Jack is not going to travel, obviously, and I really hope that Jack and Aggie are fine, because they could be our grandparents,
Absolutely.
I mean, Jack, I consider him a poetic grandfather. I really hope they're doing well wherever they are. Probably in North Beach, I guess.
Where else would he be?
Yeah.
So I think I'm going.
Speaking of Jack,
Well, I'm just thinking now. What really seems like a good idea is that, like, given what we have now, I mean, all it really takes is one person with a Zoom account, and you could have a festival. I mean, you could have a kind of a digital festival.
I would really like to hear Jack's voice now, man. I would really like to hear Jack doing poetry.
Well, we'll probably have to talk to Aggie about setting the thing up on the computer, because Jack's not necessarily
Yeah,
the most updated with the Zoom account, but
yeah.
I think it's totally possible. I think you get Jack. I think you get a number of other people, and all from all across the world. I mean, this makes the process a lot easier, actually.
Yeah, I'd also like to hear. Do you remember Dunya from Iraq, who lives in Detroit? Dunya Mikhail.
Yes.
She has an absolutely amazing book that came out recently, In Her Feminine Sign. She wrote it in Arabic and English, like she self-translated, and it's very, very good. I hope she's well as well. I guess she's in Detroit. Yeah, let's try and organize that. I'll speak to Aggie. Speaking of Jack, right? I have a short poem written a couple of days ago, quite spontaneously, where I mentioned Jack.
Sure.
I won't give the context because it's in the poem already. Yeah, this is a short one. It's just 4 short stanzas, right? It's called Jesus in My Wallet. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What is the Jesus I have in my wallet, right? So, I don't believe in God, but I believe in Jesus, a literary archetype of protest, perseverance, patience. He's in my wallet, next to my medical insurance card. That is to say, Jack Hirschman's Path, original and penciled Maltese. He's in my car, in the front passenger door. You never know. Oh, Jesu, oh, Jesus, this blissful comfort tonight. May my enemies feel it sometime soon.
Wow. That's beautiful. Well, I think Antoine, I think that's a good note for us to close this conversation on, and let us definitely plan let us plan something. It's just, I mean,
let's talk to
it's just a matter of doing it. I mean, it's just a matter of having the contacts and knowing people.
Yeah, there's Yahya in Florida as well.
I'll tell you what, I actually have access to a Zoom account that has like a professional Zoom account from the Dawes Center for the Arts, where I'm the literary director. So I can put on an international poetry festival, and you and me can produce it, and we can put it on.
Let's do it.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Done.
Otto agrees.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Silent partner.
And company. Oh, man. So I'm going to do a reading online tonight.
Okay.
8 p.m. Central European Time.
Okay.
I don't know what time that is in California or New York. Easy to work out.
What time is it over there right now?
The time here now is 2:42.
Okay, so it's 5:40 p.m. in California time. So that means that we are 9 hours apart, I think. Or wait. Yeah, 9 hours apart.
Makes sense.
So 8 p.m. your time would be 11 a.m. our time.
Ah, cool. All right. So it's going to be Facebook Live. Easy to find. Just go to Walking in the Days of the Virus. It's an event page. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do a reading with Otto of these poems. Just an hour. So,
okay, cool. Next question. I want to know where I want the audience to have a chance to hear. Where can they pick up your work if they're interested in the passport or in your new work and work in your previous work and all that kind of stuff? How can they find your work if they want to take it home?
Okay, there's quite a bit of stuff in English on the internet. lyricline.de. It's this very good kind of poetry database where you can listen to the poems, and it's got translations in English. There's my website where I'm publishing these walking poems, AntoineCassar.net. They're all on the homepage. And then the passport, just go to Passaport. That's like passport, but with an A in the middle, because that's the Maltese word for passport. Passaport.info, I think. And it's not updated, and I'm not going to update it till after the lockdown, probably. But there you can find fragments, and you can order it. And if you order the passport, then choose an NGO or a collective to receive the donation. There's one in California on the list, which is called East Bay Sanctuary. I worked with them when we were in San Francisco. So, yeah, any donations that I receive for them, I will pass on later. Yeah, they do very good work with people from Central America, especially Nicaragua, Guatemala, looking for asylum in the US. And I guess they need help right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you and everyone who's following my page. We're gonna be seeing a lot more of Antoine and Octu in the near future.
Thanks so much, Matt. Really good to hear you and see you. Let's keep in touch and let's do this festival with Jack.
We're done.
Our friends from all over the place. Take care, man.